Welcome to Chronic Combat Conversations. We got a special live stream today. We had a bit of a time at UFC 282, and I think it's about time that we did a little recap show to dig into everything that happened, whether it's lost bets, won bets, and the topic of the day or the weekend was some judging scandals. So, I mean, please, before we get started here, just throw a like on the video. It helps out a ton. Please subscribe to the channel, and we hope you join us in the chat here because, man, we were thinking we had some carousel time going into this week. Shout out Moyes in the chat here, but oh man, things got a little ugly here. So we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna pull up the Bet MMA, the official place where you could go find all of our best bets every week as a conglomerate. Chronic Combat here today without the guru. So very sad boy who doing the show without my buddy who actually works a normal work schedule. So here we are by myself, but we're making it happen. And I think we're going to have a fun time today. So make sure in the chat you let us know what your thoughts were and what bets you had for UFC 282 and how it went. And man, I can't wait to break down some of this judging stuff. So, I mean, real quick, first off, let's go through what we had real quick for the weekend as the show gets kicked off here. And, things, it was a bit up and down as she goes. And man, Alex Morono, that looked like a great underdog pick. But man, how things change in the third round. Jay Perrin, I'll take an L on that one. I'm sorry, Guru. You told me all week that Rosas was going to win and Perrin was a stupid pick, and Perrin was a stupid pick. I'm happy we just did a half a unit on it as opposed to any more. Chris Curtis, Joaquin Buckley, man, we couldn't have had a better dog shot. A dog of the day. Chris Curtis pulling through for the boys. So gotta be happy about that one. Next, we had a nice little parlay here. Fight to start round 2 for Pimblett Gordon and Duplessis versus Till. 2 units on that, man. That's a nice cash out. But my favorite part of the night was stacking the main event overs. Man, we did not like this fight to end inside the distance. So fight starts round 3, 3 units. Fight starts round 4, 2.3 units. Fight starts round 5, 1 unit. Fight goes the distance, half a unit. So honestly, if we took that Ankalaev 4-5 decision and instead of playing a side like I was talking about on the show, we could have just kept on stacking those overs a bit more and thrown more on the fight goes the distance. Man, it was a good time though. So I think overall the idea was correct. Then we get to this Pimblett inside the distance. I told Guru all week the fight goes the distance. My jackass goes ahead and places a bet on Jared Gordon as well. And we're going to get into that. So we'll circle back to the judging on that fight and all of our other fights. But just to close out, recap on the bets here. Morono fight goes the distance. Man, that one hurt. Oh, that was so close. That 2.7 units right there. I mean, that's also a killer on the final line. As you see, I mean, we lose a total of 2.3 units, and we just have a couple bets here that just could have went either way. Yo, shout out Moyes in the chat, keeping it going. Yo, Moyes, what was your biggest cash out of the weekend, my brother? Make sure you throw it in there so we can talk about it. Or your worst loss, who knows? What made you hurt or feel better? So then we got Billy Quarantillo, round 3 decision. Man, all right. So Billy Quarantillo and over 1.5 is what we really, really wanted. But on BetMMA, you can't lay that officially. I've been talking to the guy behind the scenes, Mike. He's a good guy. So he told me for the new year he should have it ready. But man, that really hurts when Billy Q and over 1.5 or Billy Q live bet, both things we couldn't put on BetMMA, but we cashed out heavy on. Fight starts round 3 and Curtis Buckley. Buckley's chin just didn't last. It happens. Dawkins decision only. Fair enough. The over 1.5, though, that was a terrible bet. So I'll definitely take an L on that one. It was something I thought we'd see some staring in the mirror on both sides, but they got right into it. Shabazian round 1 or 2 at plus 100. Took him a little bit to get there, but Dolce had no business in there with him. So I like that. Quarantillo sub just took a little baby stab. The knockout was nice, but we thought just in case, he wraps up the choke on him. Fight not to start round 3, Silva versus Brown. Yeah, bet in retrospect. Under 1.5 for Simon Coslow. I'd bet that one again for sure. And Curtis by decision, half unit. Yeah, you can't kill yourself. Really, the end of the night, I mean, it's a 4-unit swing on having 1.5 units on Ankalaev round 4 or 5 or decision. So I think let's stop on this tab, and I think it's going to be important right now. We got to pull up the UFC scorecards from this weekend because I think one of the reasons why I really wanted to get in here today was to talk about a bit of the judging and what you guys are thinking was kind of the problem here for what happened with the judges and the scorecards, because for the majority of the night we didn't need the judges at all. So, it was a very nice thing, to not have to worry about it. And then we get to our final two fights of the night, and that's where things start falling off the walls here. So I think one of the important things to look at is like which rounds were scored for which fighter as we're breaking down what we thought happened in the fight. Also, I could go ahead. We'll get some stats up here to talk about as well. We love the stats, but I think first where we'll start out is we're going to come down to Paddy Pimblett versus Jared Gordon. We'll touch that one second. Let's start on Jan Blachowicz and Magomed Ankalaev. So let's zoom in a little bit, get this looking nicer for the people back home. So kindly joining the stream with us today. So here we go. Blachowicz and Ankalaev. I think that what we're going to find is at least that there is a little bit more consistency on this fight overall than what I felt in the co-main event. So we can see here we got our three judges: Mike Bell, Derek Cleary, Sal D'Amato. So Mike Bell goes ahead and gives Blachowicz rounds 1 through 3 and gives Ankalaev rounds 4 and 5. I think that we can make an argument here that round 3 was pretty close, right? I mean, that's where Blachowicz is really getting damaged. Yeah, cocaine and gambling addiction. Yeah, you got to listen to some of this Doug Crosby stuff. He hopped on a couple guys' shows in the past. Aaron Bronstetter posted about it. So shout out Aaron Bronstetter. You can actually hear the audio of Doug Crosby going off the rails on some of these shows. So make sure you guys check that out because, man, that was supremely sketchy, let me tell you. So why is Crosby still judging here? That'll be the next fight that we get to. But we have Mike Bell, Derek Cleary, Sal D'Amato for this one. So let's see. Mike Bell, like we just talked about, gives Blachowicz rounds 1 through 3. You can make an argument for that. Sal D'Amato also gives rounds 1 through 3 to Jan Blachowicz. However, he gives a 10-8 for round 5 to Magomed Ankalaev. And I actually agree with that. I lean more towards a 10-8 in the 5th round than I do a 10-9. I think there was sustained damage. I think in a non-championship fight, there's a possibility of a stoppage. Jan Blachowicz has the championship mentality and obviously is able to survive through that damage, the extended bad positions, eating ground and pound, and damage was accumulating. So I do think that there is a good argument, and 2 out of the 3 judges give it 10-8 in round 3 for Magomed Ankalaev. I think if Mike Bell followed suit there, we would be looking at a majority draw instead of a split draw. I think the argument really comes down here is that Derek Cleary gives a 48-46 to Magomed Ankalaev. And that's what ends up making this fight a split draw, is that he gives a clean victory, rounds 3 through 5. Derek Cleary does for Magomed Ankalaev. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts in the chat are about that and how you scored the fight live when you were watching it. I personally told Guru I could see the argument as we were watching live for a 10-8 Ankalaev. I felt pretty comfortable about Ankalaev getting rounds 3, 4, and 5 as we were watching live. But on rewatch, I could see the argument for Jan winning round 3. So honestly, do I have an issue with how they scored the main event? I would love to see a little bit more consistency across the board with how the judges scored it. I'd like to see all 3 have a 10-8 for the 3rd round. I'd like to see all 3 agree on the 3rd round. But honestly, the 3rd round was the closest, and I don't think they actually did as bad of a job. I just think we were all kind of jaded from the co-main event by the time we got here that, yeah, it felt a little bit more disappointing than it actually was. So, yeah, we got a split draw as the result. Now, I think this is the one that all the people have been waiting for. So real quick, before we get into this one, just going to put out a little tweet. Got to take a bong rip. Got to drink a little coffee because we're about to get into why we are really here right now. And I really think that, this was just a poor job by the judges. And realistically, what we're talking about here is that, was this purposeful? Were the judges like doing this as like they were instructed to? Was this just bad judging where this is what they actually thought that the results were? There's a few questions to be answered here. It's a great question. And we see our 3 judges. We have Doug Crosby, Chris Lee, and Ron McCarthy. And Doug Crosby is eating a ton of shit online for this. And rightfully so. The guy scored 50-45 Sabatello the night before, flying across the country from the Mohegan Sun to be in Vegas. I mean, I saw Michael David Smith on Twitter talking about this. How do you have NFL officials there 24 hours ahead of time to make sure no jet lag, to make sure they're fully prepared? How do you not have UFC judges over 24 hours ahead of time at the venue, making sure they're not jet lagged, making sure they're ready to go to watch these fights? Um, yeah, I think that it's actually egregious that, and this isn't the UFC, by the way. The new Nevada State Athletic Commission is the one that's saying, hey, Doug Crosby, we know you were in Connecticut last night. Come on down. Why don't you do our co-main event, buddy? Why don't you sit down? But Chris Lee, we also got to have a conversation, don't we? He also had 29-28 Paddy Pimblett. But we don't need to have as much of a conversation, Chris Lee, because you gave rounds 2 and 3 to Paddy Pimblett. I can see an argument either way for that. Ron McCarthy, you're the other guy that we need to talk to. Big John McCarthy's son. And even John McCarthy called this guy out. It's his own damn son. And he said, listen, he probably got, swayed by being there in person at the event. Paddy Pimblett, anytime he lands anything, the whole crowd's going crazy. The people are going crazy. I mean, I get it. If you're sitting there scoring a fight live, and even though one guy's landing bigger impact, if no one's cheering when it happens, yeah, bias side, you might start leaning the other way on the scorecard. I don't know. Is that what you guys were thinking was happening? Was it the fans kind of swaying the bias of the judges here, and kind of those Paddy, maybe he was landing and got more quote unquote damage, but I mean, Jared Gordon was treating that kid's head like a balloon, like just knocking it back. It was Paddy chin up in the air, just head reacting to every left hook as Jared Gordon comes in. I mean, man, I really thought that Jared Gordon did enough to get a 29-28, but it just so happens that all three judges just couldn't agree on what rounds they even thought Paddy Pimblett won. And the most egregious thing of all is that two of the fucking judges have Paddy Pimblett winning round 1. Two of the judges have Paddy Pimblett winning round 1. And then Dana White gets up there at the press conference and talks about, well, if Jared Gordon had fought with more urgency in round 3, and bro, even if he won round 3 on all three judges' scorecards, which he won it on 2 out of 3, he still would have lost a split decision. So Dana White, what the fuck are you talking about? Quite honestly, you're making up bullshit. So if we put on the tinfoil hat, is it that you can't bet on an underdog, that the UFC is pushing their opponent if they're not going to get a finish? Because that's what I'm taking away from this. Quite honestly, I did not for 1 second expect Jared Gordon to finish Paddy Pimblett. Not for 1 second. I thought this fight would go the distance. I thought Paddy Pimblett would look like he would lose the fight. And you know what he fucking did? But guess what? Barstool Sports. You got Dana White having Paddy Pimblett trashing Ariel Helwani on his show. If this fight's going the distance, you know which guy's going to win. And everyone fucking told me all week, even Guru, 95% that Paddy Pimblett wins this fight. Motherfucker, you were right. And you know the reason? It's because Jared Gordon wasn't going to get a finish. It's time for a bonger, people. This is Chronic Combat. I haven't hit the bong once. I'm used to Guru generally talking, so I could do it. So join me if you're smoking something. Make sure you get it going here. Tell me in the chat, who's your best bet at UFC 282? What did you lose money on? And what was your scorecard for Pimblett versus Gordon? How did you score these 3 rounds? I want to know in the chat. Make sure you tell me what your picks were and wherever you sit. And also, please like and subscribe. I mean, it helps out a lot. I appreciate it. But shit, man, it's about time we hit this. So. All right. So, nothing like weed and coffee to start your day, right? So, Moise had a 29-28 Gordon. And he bet Paddy, no bias. Legit, I bet Jared Gordon on the money line, but it was a small tab. So, I mean, yeah, there's some inherent bias that I'm saying Jared Gordon should have won the decision. But at the end of the day, I bet the fight to go the distance. I just think it sucks trying to treat, the sport like legitimate. But I guess when it comes down to it, I mean, most other sports you gamble on, you see the Tim Donaghy shit in the NBA. You see all this other controversies and bad calls week by week in the NFL. I mean, realistically, we say every sport is rigged, so why not MMA too? I mean, Paddy Pimblett was not going to lose this fight unless Jared Gordon literally put his lights out, right? Right? I mean, it's becoming clear. Also, same fucking thing though. I mean, I don't think they clearly had a guy to push in the main event. Otherwise, if Ankalaev was really the guy that they were like, oh my god, we can't possibly have him lose this fight. Then yeah, I mean, he would have gotten the decision in the same type of token. But in the same way, they wouldn't set up a guy like this, like Paddy Pimblett, to lose a decision, to lose a fight. And in the same way, they wouldn't set up a guy like Raul Rosas, someone that they're plastering all over their Instagram, their Facebook, their Twitter, these guys that they're promoting heavy. One thing that I found recently, and I will leave you guys with this, is if you don't think that your fighter is going to win by a finish, it's really fucking sketchy to bet MMA at this point. It really is. Props, overs, unders, okay. All right, I think you can have a little more success with that potentially. But if you're trying to fade the narrative, you're trying to go against the hype, and you're watching tape and you see Jared Gordon could grind out a guy like Paddy Pimblett, it's not worth it to fucking bet him unless you think he's going to get a finish. It's not. I don't care what the line is. It really doesn't fucking matter. Plus 200, guess what? Paddy Pimblett, unless he got finished, that's a 99%er, my friend. Oh my fucking God. There he is. Oh my God, the guru joining us from the lab. What's up, dog?
What's going on? I'm here. Did I make it?
Wow, he made it. Just as I was getting ready to be like, oh, we might, gonna end it soon. Let me leave you with some final pieces of advice for going forward. Like, guru, man, I just need to know real quick, man, your scorecard for Paddy versus Gordon and your thoughts on if it was kind of a legitimate draw in the Jan and Ankalaev fight.
Yeah, so I was pretty sauced up during these time periods, so my memory can be a little hazy. So feel free to bear with me. But yeah, man, I mean, I don't think anybody actually thinks Paddy won that decision. It's certainly not fair and square. Was the fight close? Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, like it was close, but
I mean, it's close, at least in the third round, especially to me, because you've seen the judges correct in terms of control without any damage. Like it's almost viewed as like laying on your back, like when the dude's like standing on you trying to hit you with them leg kicks, and you're just kind of on your back, like playing with your feetsies. Like it looks bad. Like they actually don't like it. So I actually think that they took away from Jared for that instead of giving him something positive for that. But I mean, as you see, right, you got, yeah, I mean, the round 3 wasn't even the one that was the problem. It was round 1, at least on the judges' scorecards. So, listen, I'd have to rewatch round 1 again, but I don't think he was doing pretty well. I'd say.
Yeah. So, Guru, the way I put it was that basically, like for this fight. And we never for 1 second expected Jared Gordon to get a finish. And that right there is why you're correct that it was a 95%er for Paddy. It's the 5% chance that he gets finished. Other than that, he's getting the decision no matter fucking what. He's the bigger dude that's going to at least throw volume. So that's something just to remember going forward for narrative. So let me slide down real quick to the scorecards for Jan and Ankalaev for you. And we'll just go back over this real quick, and then we'll cut it at that.
For sure. Yeah, super crazy fight. Safe to say, I would say that the first 2 rounds were, fairly easy for Jan, right? And that the last 2 rounds were fairly easy for Ankalaev. The 10-8 in round 5, I think, is debatable. I feel like he only dominated really was dominating with that ground and pound for only a portion of that round. But did Jan actually offer up really any damage towards Ankalaev in that 5th round? I don't really think so. I think to me, maybe I'm crazy, but I think Derek clearly kind of has the scorecard right. Maybe round 3 was too close. I'd have to rewatch round 3 again. I've heard plenty of people saying that round 3 might have been for Jan.
So round 3 was super close. I think what happened was leg kicks, and then that's when Ankalaev finally started wrestling. That's when in the fight we're like, okay, good. Right. He finally committed to the wrestling. But it's like, I don't know if he landed enough damage in those sequences to fully win that round, more so than take the momentum back. But I'm not going to argue.
Right.
10-8, 10-8
listen,
on 2 of the 3 scorecards in round 5.
but momentum and control are not the judging criteria. The first and foremost judging criteria has to be damage inflicted. And, Jan's leg kicks were quite damaging.
Yes.
So if that's
Correct.
how you have to score it to the letter, then, shit, maybe Ankalaev really didn't win, and maybe a draw is actually fair if you want to give the first 3 rounds to Jan and then give him give Ankalaev a 10-8 in round 5, then you actually have an even 48-48 draw.
Yes, and Guru, I think that was my only argument with this fight as I broke it down to start, was that it wasn't a majority draw or just a straight up draw, and that it was a split draw. And I'm confused how you can get one guy could give Blachowicz a 48-47 and another could give Ankalaev a 48-46. You either got to be Sal or you got to be Derek Cleary. That's my thoughts. I don't know how you're Mike Bell in this fight. That's all.
Very true. But I think that's it for me. Thanks for doing this, dude. Happy to come chat and check in on you guys. Thanks so much for everybody tuning in. Yeah, of course. Thanks for everybody for tuning into this live little brief discussion. Yeah, Justin, not really my weekend either. But, we got one more week to turn the ship right. And then 2022, geez, 2023, baby. We cooking with gas now. So make sure you stay tuned.
Hell yeah. So, yeah, we'll leave it at that, people. We're hopping out. Take care. We'll see you Wednesday.